Jackie is a Cape Cod-based multidisciplinary artist whose practice spans large-scale paintings, drawing, installation, collage, and animation. Born in Montreal, Canada, she earned her BFA from Concordia University and completed her MFA through the Mass College of Art and Design at the Fine Arts Work Center in Provincetown. Reeves began her career as a professional mural painter before shifting her focus to studio practice. Her work has been featured in numerous solo and group exhibitions throughout New England and has appeared in publications including the Boston Globe, White Hot Magazine, Art New England, and Art Scope. In recent years, Reeves has expanded her artistic practice into award-winning animation and short film through the Ink Line Project, a collaborative project that combines her animated artwork with original poetry by author and collaborator Lauren Wolk. And I think Lauren is here as well. There is Lauren. Yeah. Jackie is a dedicated educator, mentor, and community muralist. She's also the co-recipient, alongside Lauren Woke, as I said, of the 2026 Artist of the Year Award from the Arts Foundation of Cape Cod. Please help me in welcoming Jackie Reeves.
Thank you. Hello, and thank you. Can you hear me? I can't hear it through here, but yeah? Okay. I'm going to put my glasses on and actually read something, which is not what I usually do, but I wanted to extend all my thank yous and make sure I get it right. So first of all, thank you all for coming out tonight, and to Christine McCarthy for this beautiful museum that you manage, and this nationally recognized cultural institution and America's oldest active arts colony. I'm saying this because if any of my family that are up in Canada are listening, they don't know anything about this place. So you all know this, but. And I'd like to thank the exhibition selection committee and the entire team at PAM who hang the shows, document everything, plan classes, and organize community engagement. I want to thank Bert Yarborough, my curator for this show, who I first met in 2011 at the Fine Art Work Center while I was enrolled in Mass Arts MFA program. Bert was a professor at the residency teaching us about the history of art in P-Town. He was also a studio mentor to me for 2 of those semesters. We have stayed connected over the years, and when I needed a curator to submit a proposal to Pam, Bert was my most obvious choice, having witnessed my evolution over the past 15 years. I want to thank my friends who have been by my side, joining in on art play dates in my studio, excursions to see art together, and to carpool from the Lower Cape to P-Town. There's such a huge community of people on the Cape supporting the arts, the art centers, the gallerists, schools, and I feel so grateful to have worked with so many of you over the years. And lastly, I want to thank my family. The original gang, which are my parents and 6 siblings, who gave me the strong foundation I now stand on: family bonds, creative play, community connection, and a love of the great outdoors. I'd like to thank my husband, Bruce, who has been by my side through every evolution of my adult life, supporting me and encouraging me to stay on my creative path. And our 3 daughters, Jasmine, who's here tonight, Allegra, and Isabel, 3 creative, strong, and beautiful women who inspire me to reach beyond what I think I can do, if only to inspire the same for themselves. So my presentation tonight will start with a little backstory, and then I'll pull back the curtain and show you what happens behind the scenes in my studio. From here on, I will have no notes, and so it's going to be all improv, which is the way that I make art. And most of you all do too. Here's a picture of my parents, who are met in architecture school at McGill University. This is in their final year. I think the date is written on there, 1956. They're both, my father ended up continuing on with his practice while my mother ended up raising many children. So she had to put her career to the back burner or off the burner altogether. This is my family before the final 2 siblings were born. I just love this one because it seems so quintessentially Canadian. And you can find me, and the names are all there. I'm somewhere I'm right on my dad's lap. Here we are, some more family shots of the gang. And I show these pictures because a lot of what my work is about has to do with family and community, and the way that I was taught to play, or the way that I played and never kind of stopped. This bottom picture on the right has, we did a lot of dress up and costumes and playing, and so this was like a carnival day on the ski hill, and very typical of what my father would do, would make these costumes. This was out of the architecture paper, which served for a lot of art projects in our house. And here we are dressed in the Olympics. I guess that was the Olympics of, when were the Olympics in Montreal? Who remembers that? Can't remember, but 70s. And of course, the first run, they completely ripped to shreds and all went off of our bodies. But that's an example of how my father would decorate us as kids. Home movies. Home movies are a big part of my inspiration in my artwork. This one. So that's me, that little person at the end jumping in. I think I'm 3 years old there. But watching home movies for me was just magical as a kid. So these are Super 8 films. Maybe once a year, we'd pull out the projector, and we would watch the movies, and I just thought it was so magical. That's my sister Kathy. In we go, one at a time. And the oldest, Marianne. So this reversing was always a big fun trick to do. It was part of the magic of what film was for me. Oh, I know, poor girl. 1970. All right. So these are some of the influences that informed my visual world. The home movies, the silver screen, it was all very impactful in how I think about time, and I'll reflect on that. I'll come back to that later in the talk. So the home movies were a big part, just the magic of the big screen, and seeing myself on there was very abstract and like, wow, that's me on the screen, and then being able to go back and forth. This is an example. My parents were also art collectors, and my father was very much involved in the art community through his career as an architect. He was meeting artists and also had a family of artists. So this is a large painting that I grew up with, which, again, I found works when I revisited this for the slideshow. I found my own work that looked so much like this without my realizing where the influence had been coming from. But I wanted to show you that. Also collected abstract paintings. Here's a couple that I grew up looking at. And Marc Chagall posters. So we had a lot of art books around too. Art books and Architectural Digest magazines were around the house. And these were things that I looked at as a child. And then my mother had her visual, so it was mostly my father that was the art collector. My mother was very into photography, and so that's her photograph that she took when she was probably in her teens. She was like the school photographer, and I have albums of her photos, which have also appeared in my artwork. And then this painting is something my father did when he was a teenager, which it was pasted, it was attached to our electrical box in my house growing up, just to like scare. It was behind a garage door, and it was just kind of funny, and it's still kicking around. So, Dad, if you're out there listening, you made it onto my slideshow. His art. Oh, I just had to put this on because classical. This is my mother. She did this drawing. If you have a look at this image. She has the floor plan of the upstairs of our house and all the beds with the options for different configurations of how to organize the children. With a scale on the bottom, if you can see at the bottom, it's got, I can zoom in so you can see that. Like, who does that, right? That's like, my mom, and we only just found this in a file like in the last year. It was very exciting to find that. All of our initials, 7 kids, how do we stack them? How do we put them? We had bunk beds, and there was 3 rooms to fit 7 kids, so we were all configured in different ways. But type A mom, she was the mathematician of the family. And so I grew up really loving, as a young teenager, my first artist that I was inspired by, Egon Schiele, Degas, Toulouse-Lautrec. And I think, a lot of it had to do with, I loved the unfinished quality of these works and the way they were really emphasized drawing, because drawing was something that I loved to do. And so I put together this top row of images that I created when I was probably about 18 years old, those 3 on the top. And then I found some from this year, and I was like, wow, I guess I haven't changed that much. I thought you think you really change your visual language over the years, but I was quite surprised that I was painting very similarly at quite a young age. All self-portraits. Oh, it's a bit cut off on the bottom. And then this is also early work that I did. The first one, I would have been in my first year of university. So again, I was like 19 years old. And what's interesting about this image is it so relates to a lot of the work in the show. What I did was I used that little drawing of the girl is actually a drawing that my father did of me in 1975. I can zoom in, you can see the date there. That's what I like about having my iPad. So I took his drawing and I photocopied it and moved it around on the photocopier and got some like weird abstraction. And so this is a print. And then I layered up some printing. And again, it's like it only occurs to me when I'm putting together the slideshows like this, and I'm like, oh, wow, I actually have been playing with this technology, mixing technologies of the time into my work from the very beginning. The photocopier being part of that process of playing and getting to some abstraction. And then this one is a more recent collage that looks very, very similar, like this layered quality. When I first moved to the Cape, which was 30 years ago, I had a career of painting murals for 15 years with my partner, Chris Reverdy. And together we did murals like this, very large-scale murals, mostly landscapes. Trompe-l'œil is something, the trick of the eye was something that we kind of got to be specialists at. It just sort of happened naturally. We didn't plan on it. We did all kinds of different murals, but eventually we got to be known for doing that kind of work, which opened up architectural spaces, like the one of the going up the stairs. Anyway, I have like hundreds of images, but I selected these few just to give you a sense of when I first started painting large scale. Was really when I started painting murals. I had not done anything bigger than maybe 4 feet prior to my friend saying, you want to help me paint a mural? And I'm like, I don't know how to paint murals. She's like, oh, yeah, I've seen how you draw. You'll be fine. And so we just learned on the job, and it was really fun. And it was something I did while I was raising children. When the kids were little and being born, it was really useful to be able to build your own schedule and take on clients when you could manage them. I would bring babies along to the mural jobs while they sat in the sleeping and just nurse in between painting. It was a really wonderful time, and I learned so many skills, so many great painting skills that again circle back to work that I do now, that I get flashes of, like, oh, this is like all the faux finishing. We did a lot of faux finishing too, which is like making brick walls, and well, that's actually a brick wall, but we used to paint fake brick wall all the time. This is Barnstable High School, and that's somebody's private home. Here's my family. So there's an example of a trompe-l'œil mural. So everything behind me is painted. And this is in somebody's living room, which is wild that people wanted this, but it was a trend for a while. And again, it was something that when the kids were little, this was fun for me to do. And there's my kids all grown up. So you can see the then and now. Life drawing has been a part of my life since the high school years. I kind of have continued with it my entire, career, art life. Always have life drawing classes going. When I first moved here, the first thing I did was start up a life drawing group. I love working with a live model. I learned a lot, and I've just been doing it nonstop, and I teach it, so I've just gotten to become really second nature. And I use, sometimes I'll use photographs. A lot of these are photographs or live models. And that has, this is work that is early work. When I say early work, maybe 18 years ago or so, when I first, so after painting murals for a while, I kind of got tired of schlepping the paint and climbing scaffolding. And I had a shift. I was 40 years old, and I remember it was a big shift, and I decided, what would it be like to paint my own paintings, because I had never done that. Everything was commissioned. And that opened up a whole new world of, a whole new direction. It's like my path really split at that point. And I started to play around and investigate what it was that I wanted to paint. So these were the early works. And I see the influence of the Degas and the earlier images that I showed you, Lautrec. The things that I had looked at a lot at Impressionism and the figuration. And then you can see how it's showing up in these paintings. That one, the one on the left is acrylic and charcoal and collage on paper, and it's about 7 feet tall. And then the other one is oil on panel, and it's about 5 foot square. And I meant to say, if you have any burning questions along the way, I am happy to have dialogue. I don't need it to be a one-way conversation, or we can save the questions to the end, but if you do feel like you have something you really want to ask, feel free. And then I started really thinking about what am I making, who am I, and I kind of hearkened back to my early beginnings, and my father had given me these rolls of architecture paper that he was throwing out, and so I did a bunch of work on his old drawings. So if you see the one on the left, you can see some of the renderings on the Mylar. So I had his Mylar drawings that he was basically getting rid of, and painted these figures over the Mylar. So that one, I don't know, it's about this big. And the other one here, this figure going down the stairs, is also 7 feet tall, similar to a couple of the pieces that are in the gallery. And around the same time that I was making that work. And obviously, my daughters were young teenagers, getting to become teenagers, and I was thinking a lot about their transition. All of our female, just all transition and movement comes up a lot in my work, which, you can see that in the figures. And then collage, again, using the papers, wallpaper, drawing. This is called Sisters Dreamers. Just thinking about my relationship with my own sisters. Did I mention I had 5 sisters and 1 brother? Yeah, so the female energy is big in my life, and I have 3 daughters, so I think a lot about the relationship that women have and also with their mothers. Okay, here's another quick little home movie. Wee-hoo! Get to watch it again. So experimentation, like this, I'll move on to the next one, informs some of my painting. So I look at these movies, I take a little still shot of it, I'll do a drawing, and then I created this is a painting example just to show you where my references are coming from. This is oil on panel, and I think it's about that big. Yeah, I know, it looks so huge on here, like it's not that big. In another version of the same scene, which that scene to me is just very iconic, and this waving, the running turn, run, turn, wave is the name of the painting. It's so nostalgic for me, and it's what we all do. We just mug at the camera and wave, and I'm trying to find ways to explore what's happening in there. I don't have the answers. Really, when I'm painting, I'm just looking for something. So I try to use materials where I know some accident is going to happen, where I don't have control over the outcome. So in this case, spilling, this is an aluminum panel where I was just trying to get the effect of the silver screen. So it has a shimmer and shine and as it moves around. Oop. And then these are processes that I play with that help me to open up and stay fluid and just have experiences where I don't know what's going to happen. I could ruin it. I could ruin what I've done, but usually I get some happy results that lead me to the next thing. So it's all about taking a little risk and just playing and not being precious about the work. Really just seeing, well, what will happen if I do this? So let's do a lot of dragging, pulling, splattering. There's another aluminum painting with the drag and pull. And collage is also a big part. I love like moving parts, like having the paper to be able to move things around and then integrating drawing on top. This is, and I have so many references of my kids running around. My like all of you, your phones are filled with thousands of photos of the people you love. And so I have endless resources of girls in action, dancing, playing, right? So much. Oh my gosh. Oh, this is a little film that I made in my studio that kind of came by accident. It was like, oh, I'm doing a collage, let me take a picture, and then I'll move some things around, and oh, take another picture. Yeah, that one's called Dune Shack Down. So it ended up becoming a little animated film. And it was by accident, but once I realized, so I'm using my phone, I'm like, oh, I can make my own version of a stop motion animation. And so I've played with that, and that started that way. It kind of keeps entering back in my studio. Again, like this is how I work. I usually start abstractly. I just start throwing paint down and dragging, pulling, rolling. I don't know what I'm doing. And I sometimes just don't really have an end idea. But here's an example of like a big piece of plastic that I ended up dragging in between these two panels. This piece ended up, and it's in the show. It's called Riverbank Talks. It's in the other room. It has color that then got added onto it. But there it is in its developmental stages in the studio. And masking is another technique that brings me surprises. So gluing things down, painting, pulling it off, going, oh, okay, I didn't know I was going to get that result. So these are all things that I play around with in the studio. Fabric, I came upon a bolt of fabric probably 10 years ago. Somebody dropped off some fabric. And these little accidents are not, these little happenstance events are really what direct my studio practice. I don't make big plans. I make some plans, but oftentimes those plans just end up going awry the minute I get started on something anyway. So I've learned to let go of the plan as a counter to what I used to do as a commercial artist, which was very much planned and then executed. I prefer to have the surprise of the unknown, and so I'll start abstractly like this. This is the fabric that I just poured acrylic paint onto, scrunched it, crinkle it, leave it, come back in the morning, open it up, and then start thinking about like, okay, what is this triggering for me? What ideas am I getting from this? And then this list of words, which is all those kind of action words that I think about when I'm painting. This came from a class that I was teaching. When I give workshops, I'll often have students make a mess under my direction. I'll give them the step-by-steps, and then we go back to really just kind of spell it out. What are you seeing to understand the language of art, and what are all the possibilities? Like, we're not limited. What are the things that you can do to make a mark? And like really try to push our way of thinking around that. And I have to remind myself sometimes, or all the time as well. This is a studio shot of like a lot of different work happening all at once. So I definitely work on many things at one time. This is some example of the beginnings of the fabric work that I did, of which a lot of the work in the show is on fabric. This blackout curtain liner material that I was not, I just one day didn't have any canvas, and so I started painting on this material, and it really received the paint beautifully, almost like a giant watercolor paper, but without the hassle of paper ripping and tearing, and this fabric just was gorgeous. So I started doing Rorschach-like, prints with the fabric, which gave me some really wild and crazy results. Like, when you, like a butterfly print, you squish it together, you open it, and I was getting these crazy monsters looking. And, this is a good, 7-foot painting. Yeah. Both. I usually start on the floor to get the splatters and the pours and the spills. And then I put it up on the wall to contemplate what am I going to do next, and then what am I seeing, or turn it around a lot. And then I usually see something. Like in this case, I saw this crazy face, and like I just follow my instinct, even if it doesn't make any sense and it looks crazy, and like, what am I going to do with that? I don't care about any of that. It's really just for me to discover something. And so this like three-eyed monster, like this came out, I remember doing this in 2016. I do think a lot about what's happening in the world, and it comes out in the art. I was like, obviously angry about what was happening in politics and women, and the nasty woman is what I was calling this piece for a while. I'm like, you want nasty? I'll give you nasty. Like, this girl's pretty nasty. I wouldn't want to run into this creature. So, like, I don't mean to. These things I don't plan it. I never could have planned that. So there's the surrealist in me coming out. And, okay. Oh, there's sound. Oh, that's all right. Another little movie. It's only going for another half hour. It's okay. Hang tight. Relax. Yes, those are my dad's drawings. So that's the end of that. Okay. But I wanted to show you that because I use myself as a model a lot because I'm there and it's convenient. And I don't have to and if I want something in particular, I'll just set up my camera and I play. I'm like, I'm just going to do things. But I am thinking about I still go back to the origin story of the architecture, the family, the building things, and playful, and playing in front of a camera, and then maybe I'll get something from it, and then just layering up. So that was like a video that I took on my iPad, and then the transparency of the Mylar, just pulling it over, playing with that film, using the stills that then inform the next painting. So I just wanted you to see how things kind of connect and relate. This piece, this on the right, ended up being the beginnings of the large triptych that's in the other room. This is how it started. And I thought it was pretty cool. I thought it was kind of done at that point. And I'm like, oh, I like that big blue. And then it wasn't enough. And so, again, I just play around in the studio. and start messing around with strings and perspective, thinking maybe I'll pull out this perspective into the real space. And I do a lot of things to my paintings in the studio. It's all very interesting how my brain will start to lead from one thing to another, and and then it evolves to weird stuff like this. I painted these. This was during the pandemic, so I had access to a big room, maybe the size of this room, no, bigger than this room, at where I live. And it gave me space to really explore things and look at everything on the wall all at once. So we were all trapped at home, and there was a lot of laundry happening. All the kids were living at the house. And so these are just some playful things. The drop cloth that I borrowed, I was like, oh, what would that look like on the back of this person? The weight of painting. That's the space you can see, and these are, again, more of the large-scale works on fabric. There's the beginning of the piece that's right on the other side of this wall in the room. It started out, it evolved, as all of the work does. Here's a little animation. This is kind of my first playing around with my program on the iPad, Procreate, which many of you probably are familiar with. And I just started, so I use it as a tool to work out problems in my paintings. But then when I realized that it had this playback feature, it suddenly was like an automatic animation. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. So it records every step of the way. So I played around with that, jumping to a whole other thing. This is the way my brain works, by the way. Putting together this slideshow is more work than putting together that show in the other room. I tell you, I have thousands of images, so narrowing it down was challenging. But I'll show you. This is where I live. I live on a pond, and I have this beautiful view. This is my middle child, Allegra. During the pandemic, we had a nice... it was quite peaceful, actually, because it was quiet and there was nothing to do. And thankfully, I live on Cape Cod, and it was a beautiful place to be when you're in lockdown. Not so beautiful for the rest of the world. And it resulted in this painting that, was inspired by those sleepless nights. It's called 3 a.m. And again, it's about 7 feet long. Just thinking about all of us piled together. And so, again, a few more while I was in that space. The figure drawing, I'll use my kids. They were coming in through the space a lot, and I would capture them on film and then draw and then figure out what I was going to do with that. These are a few examples of some of the paintings inspired by my kids and their friends. And this one is based off of a photograph that my mother took when she was a teenager. And again, it's also a big one called Access Denied. And it's like, I look back at these photos and I'm just trying to find some information. Like, what is it telling me? I feel like I'm looking for clues in my family photo albums. Like, there's so many interesting images that I'll just start, looking for something in them. And then like here, I'm just playing with a paper model. Again, thinking about the models that I grew up with. My mom was the model maker, so she would have the foam core because she was very precise with the measuring. And we'd have these, they were like little doll houses that I grew up with, the mini trees and the little glass windows. And so one day in the studio, I just was like, oh, I'm going to make some walls to mimic this place where I was going to have a show. And then it just kind of collapsed and fell apart. And then I started playing with that. So I was like, and then taking a picture of everything, again, using the technology. I'm like, oh, let's keep moving it. It's like collage, just move it. It's the mother in the beds. It's so, and as I'm doing these things, all the memories, pop back. It's in the making that you flash back to your earlier times. And I was definitely being flashed back to playing with doll houses, making making cardboard houses, and all the stuff you do as a kid. And so just documented it, and then added a human, and just playing with scale. I don't know if this is a Canadian thing, but I think this show started in the US. The Friendly Giant, does anybody know that? Yes, somebody does. Okay, good. Dawn. So you remember that opening sequence, The Friendly Giant? There's this whole thing going on with the furniture, and then a hand suddenly appears, and you're like, oh my God, it's that size? So that, as I was making those little collages with the walls, I immediately thought about that show that I watched as a kid all the time. And so these kinds of things just keep on like popping in my brain and then inform like how I move forward with it. So I played around for quite a while with these figures in the walls, in the shapes, just seeing where that would go. And using my graphic design background, I can build things in layers in my computer as well. And it just led to, from being little models, paper models, to real life walls with some dancers. That was in a show I had last year at the Cultural Center of Cape Cod. And these dancers moved around these walls that I had built in the gallery. And this bottom one has the architectural plans, and you can see the architectural plans that my father was throwing out one day. He had rolls of original pencil-drawn drawings that are just beautiful, and they were going in the garbage. And I'm like, no, I don't know what I'll do with them, but don't throw those out. And of course he had done so many over the years, but I just have this one roll that's probably got maybe 30 drawings. And I can't believe he did those by hand. Like they're just insane. And then going back again and playing in the studio, just moving things around on my wall. Okay, I'm showing you a few things that kind of never see the light of day. So you got secret access to the silly things that I do, which led to like these dolls and working with foam, insulation foam. It got a little crazy, and then when it gets a little crazy, I then backtrack and go back to what I was doing before. But I have a lot of tangents in the studio, as you can see. But then my home base, it comes back to drawing is definitely my home base. Here's like a series of charcoal drawings based off of stills of the home movies. I kind of did a little screen grab so you could see where I'm getting compositional ideas. It's just kind of like a way for me to work things out in my head. And we are coming to a close soon. Picture of my mom and the babies. And then here's a little, just so you can see how I work on the floor. Yeah. We got just a couple of more slides. And again, another image that my mother took when she was in survey school. So I have a lot of photos of these women looking at maps, looking through the survey thing, looking down cameras, which I have found to be, very interesting. And I haven't quite known initially why, but they kind of become like a language that I keep repeating in my work. And putting my daughters as models in the same poses. I use myself as a model in the same poses, just to see where it's going to go. And before I end, okay, so the last slide I'm going to show you is an animation. The animations that I did that we were talking about with Lauren Wolk. Um, we I made an animation and wanted to have some spoken word over it. And I thought of Lauren because she's a writer, and I asked her if she would write something if she had anything to go with this poem, to go with this image animation. And she wrote a poem, recorded her voice, and put some music to it and sent it back to me. And this was the beginning of a collaboration that we've been doing now for about a year and a half, has it been? Which just kind of took off. It came out of nowhere and took off. We've started submitting our films, and we're in the Provincetown Film Festival, New York Independent Women in Film, Brooklyn Festival that we won an award for, and it just has been like a very exciting project. And I want to end off by showing you, it's a 1 minute incline, we call them, because we're called the Incline Project. And then I'll take questions after this. So.
Out of nothing comes a girl, mostly mud, but those wings, part angel, part bug, lost too soon to the pull of hearth and home, worship and worry, a noose of dread unraveled by hope. Still made of earth, but sown with seeds, rooted by her own veins, drenched in her own sea, anchored in lead, anchored in gold, a trick of the light, a trick of darkness. She is lonely in her loveliness, lovely in her loneliness.
Thank you. So that's the end of the slideshow. But I would welcome any questions if you have any. You can think about them for a moment. And no. Mm. Thank you. I often find that process has to happen that way, that building up and then tearing it all down. Because very often in the build it up and then it's just too much. And so I end up swiping it all away and it becomes much more interesting. A lot of the times. I don't always do that, but a lot of the time it's that moment where you're like, yeah, what am I saying with this piece? I don't know. Let's throw a bucket of paint on it. And then it's like, that's more interesting because now there's questions. Like it just kind of creates more questions, and I'm more interested in the questions that come out in that kind of process. So thank you for noticing. Yes, Dawn. I, that's a good question. Let's see. I think graduate school really just put it got me thinking about the larger context of the art world, the contemporary art world, which I didn't really have a lot of, a lot of education on living artists when I went to grad school. I mean, a little bit, but not. I wasn't following like the art scene. So I think it encouraged me to just keep exploring. I mean, I was always exploring, but certainly learning about some artists that I learned about, it gave, it inspired me to be free to do what I want to do. The artists like Gerhard Richter, who can do like a fully abstract painting right next to a beautiful painting of a candle. Like the fact that he'll do all these different styles gave me permission to do the same. Like I don't have to be one thing, because that was the struggle. It is finding your voice, right? It's like you think you have to stay in a lane, and I'm like defying that. I don't want to be in a lane. I just want to go wherever I want to go. Thank you. It is, and we should all be so courageous, because it doesn't bode well for markets. But I'm not. I'm not driven by that, and I just I'm in it for my own growth, my own learning, and my own like trying to just make meaning of this world. And that happens when I explore and I do things that I don't know what's going to happen. It's the unknown that is more interesting to me. The known, I already know. Why go there? I've been there before. So let's do something that I haven't done before and see what happens. And that just keeps me going all the time. There's something new. And then I drop what I was doing, like the animations, and then I'm like, oh, look at this. And then there's accidents that happen along the way with that. And the fact that I'm collaborating with Lauren is I send it off to her. I don't say anything. I just send her an animation and let her come up with her own words. And she sends it back and like more, and it blows my socks off. I'm like, that little animation was, for me, it was a doodle. It was like something you do when you're talking on the phone. And I sent him like, it's kind of cool, but like, I wonder what she'll write about this. And I just, whoa, that is so. And every single time it came back to me like that. So we've made like, how many? 35, 38, 40. We've made 40 little ink lines now, and it's just so fun. And I just love that surprise. Anyway, yes. I think I will. In fact, I am currently, because of that work, I was invited to create a sculpture for the Duxbury Art Complex Museum for their 250th anniversary celebrations. And so I'm making a giant sculpture out of concrete, which I have never done a sculpture in my life. And but somehow this curator is like, I think you can do it. And so I'm doing it, and we'll see. I hope it holds up. It's like, and it's outside. It's got to live outside for a year and a half. So it's experimental. And I'll be doing something on the grounds of PAM around Juneteenth. Again, with the 250 celebration. And I'm working on my ideas. It's really challenging, but I'll be doing something outside on the ground. So come back on Juneteenth, and we'll see what I came up with. I don't know. I still don't know. Anyway. Yes. I most certainly have, yes. In fact, when I was in grad school, one of my mentors, my teachers, she's Patty Loper, and she suggested to me, I was reaching a point with my figures and doing, and it was all about the figure and what's the figure look like, what's the figure doing, what's the pose, how much do you show? It's like pretty political, painting a figure. It's like it holds so much power. And I was getting a little bogged down by it. And she said, well, why don't you just take out the figure? Which was like, well, what am I painting then? Because like I hadn't thought of that before, and that opened up the world of abstraction for me. I made a whole bunch of paintings with fully abstract. And it was learning. It was like, then it became about the paint, and then it became about color and layers. And like, it was there before, but it was more focused. And the world of color opened up for me. If you remember, the earlier works were very kind of monochromatic. They were very like drawing. And so that really opened me up to the world of painting, which, was kind of new, even though I'd been painting murals, but I wasn't thinking in those terms when I was doing that work. It's all in what's going on in your brain, the way you think about things. So yeah, that really did help. And I've done all different ways of painting the figure. Like, well, you saw the monster kind of Rorschach, but I've also tried, like when I draw, I have so many different styles. Like I confuse myself sometimes. I even have like 3 different signatures when I sign. I'm like it's weird that I'll do so many different things, and maybe that comes from being a commercial artist and having had a lot of requests to kind of imitate other things. So I have this like habit of like, or I have an ability to be able to mimic, and that's what grad school was for me. I was like, okay, well, what's your voice? Uh, and it was there all along. It's like I just didn't hear it or see it. And that's why doing that slideshow and finding images from when I was a teenager, I'm like, oh, it was there all along. But it takes a while sometimes for the light bulb to go off and realize, like, yeah, and so grad school definitely threw me off kilter for a while, as it does, and I kind of didn't really know what I was doing right after grad school. I'm like, it's taken like that was 18 years ago now, so things have evolved, and now I can stand more assuredly than ever, and I guess that just comes with age. We get old and we get more confidence, hopefully. Okay, yeah. Yeah. Um, well, I do work in all sizes of painting, but I do feel like there's this when I'm painting the figure, and if I am going big, it's like it has to be larger than life for me. Otherwise, it looks wimpy. I don't know. And I like standing in front of a painting with a figure that's just huge. Like there's something really powerful about it. And if I can, and if I have room, that's why I like working on this fabric, because I can go big and then I can roll it up small and store it easily. And so I've kind of stuck with working on this material for that reason. But I'll work in all sizes. I'll work small, and it has a different intimate feeling. It's smaller and you get up close to it, but there's just something really exciting about the scale of a large painting that is mural sized. I love it. It's very physical. You could see from my work, it's very physical with the body, and that's something that, like, I like to show movement. Nothing is very static in my work, as you've probably noticed. It's always looking like it's on the way to becoming something. It's like in this in-between state, which is what I like, because I feel like I'm always in that in-between place of going from one thing to another thing. And that's how I make. Yeah. Aha! Yeah, what is the square footage, Richard, of the studio? What's our square footage on? It's okay. See, because I didn't get that part of the architecture brain. I can't think numbers in space. I'm like, it's about this big. Yeah. So was that? Yes, I share a studio with a studio mate, but it's about 600 square feet, and I do have tall ceilings, so I can put up I can fit those large works across one. I have one big wall that I can fit. Well, you can see it. This is this big wall. I've painted the mural that, the trap shed mural I did a couple years ago that went on Macmillan Wharf, and I painted that in my studio. I managed to fit a 16-foot by 8-foot mural in my studio. Yeah. So I'm lucky to have the space. Yeah, you got to have room to paint large. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Oh, hi, Sarah. One more.
I just wanted to comment on your generosity in showing us your actual studio and workspace, and then just for the value of having a show that can kind of showcase what you've been doing for all these years and putting together a talk. It's so valuable as an artist, but it also it gives all of us this kind of amazing, clear sort of streamline of where you come from and where you are now, and how valuable that is as an artist. So when you go back to your studio after the show is all over, you can say, hey, if you're already realizing that putting this talk together, that, you already said it, like all the answers were already there, your family and your all of the visuals from your movies. It's so valuable. Just wanted to make that comment and talk about your generosity. Thank you for that. And anyone that's not an artist, how valuable it is to have a place like town to showcase this life's work that sometimes does not get seen.
Right. Thank you so much, Sarah, for pointing that out. And that seems like a perfect place to end. All right? Unless there's any more, you can come talk to me. Thank you.